just a bit of advice on this personality intro. Don't climb mountains. They're the worst.
Why are they still doing this? Even though PES was the last game to officially release on PS2 8 years ago, and we're 3 console generations further down the line, there are still people modding PES and bringing it up to date with the players and teams we see in football today. Oh, and they're doing it on the PS2. And that helps give you an idea of just why people have declared PES as dead in glowing shiny letters. Even though Konami is continuing the series as the awfully named eFootball, moving it to a free-to-play service model and saving modes like Master League for paid DLC, which I don't have a problem with as an aside, even though all of that is still coming out and the series at large still survives, there are those of us out there saying stuff like, and just like that, PES is dead. PES has been special to a dedicated bunch of players for a long time, pushing 20 years, maybe more depending on how old and dedicated a player you're talking about. So yeah, more than 20 years in my case because I'm both old and dedicated. Mainly old, but you get the point. But why has a football series, the most forgettable of all the types of video game, become the sort of thing where modders stick with an ancient console generation to update an ancient version of the game that still exists and releases on modern platforms? PES Magic. I pretty much want to end the video here, but that wouldn't give me an excuse to have played through all these different iterations and versions of both PES and what would become PES, the proto-PESers too. So let's don our nostalgia blouses and get stuck in, both feet studs up with an abridged look at the whys and hows of why and how PES became such a special series to so many people. Quick housekeeping rule, I'm focusing mainly on the PlayStation here as it was the spiritual home of the series. I know about the GameCube game and I know about the different Japanese versions, they don't matter to the point being made, this video is already long enough. Let us continue. Arguably, this entire Konami series began in 1992 with Konami Hyper Soccer on NES, but I'm literally just saying that so I can put this footage in here and tick off mentioning the game. But really, it started with ISS, International Superstar Soccer, which released in 1994 on the SNES. Other football games of the era, including FIFA, could do a decent job of emulating foot-to-kick netball, but ISS had an extra sparkle, a twinkle. I could never quite put my finger on it, but there was something about ISS that shouted the devs both knew how to make an exciting game and that they cared about football as a sport. Passing mattered more, tactical play was a consideration. It wasn't just literally tapping the shoot button all match and winning 9-0 as genuinely happened with the original FIFA on Mega Drive. Anyway, 1995 saw ISS Deluxe release, a sequel that brought the prerequisite improvements for any sequel released soon after the original: better animations, more teams, improved looks, more commentary, tweaks, nips, and tucks. It was one of the absolute best football games of its period, and its path of greatness continued into the N64 era. But that's where we diverge. ISS continued for a while with some fantastic games on Nintendo's console, followed by a mediocre move to PS1 and PS2 in the early 2000s, but the real story began on the PS1 in the middle of 1995 in Japan. J-League Jiku Winning 11 hit in the summer. Not quite a prototype, I'm gonna call it a prototype anyway. It was made by Konami Computer Entertainment Tokyo as opposed to the Osaka branch that had handled the ISS games. With the new team came a new approach, and really it did start as something all over the place, but riddled with potential. Later in 95 and then 96, a version of the game featuring international teams rather than Japanese league sides launched as Goalstorm. Itself later released as World Soccer Winning 11 in Japan. The names, they get confusing. Goalstorm didn't exactly bag a brace, but soon enough it developed into something more complete, more recognisably great, more special: International Superstar Soccer Pro. ISS Pro released in 1997 on PS1, called Goalstorm 97 in the States and Winning 11 97 in Japan. Hey ho, the world before it practically became one giant single market. But yes, ISS Pro released in 97 and was an instant hit. It controlled fantastically, players looked the part. They did. This was 1997, hush down. It felt like you were playing real football in a way that just hadn't happened before. Outside of the Osaka-made ISS games on N64, what was the competition like? Well, let's have a look. This was the FIFA game from 1996. This was FIFA from 1997. Actua Soccer 2 from 1997. Striker 96 from 1996. Then J-League Winning 11 97, the Japanese league-based version of ISS Pro, which actually arrived in 1996. The difference was clear. Where all the others were playing catch-up, Konami's game was playing football. But this was still build-up. This wasn't the zenith, not by a long shot. The ISS Pro series saw its best outing on PS1 with ISS Pro 98, which featured that cover, and soon after another name change arrived. In 1999, Japan got Winning 11-4, while everywhere else we got ISS Pro Evolution. Not International Superstar Soccer, ISS. Not just Pro, Pro Evolution. It was a statement. The other football games were starting to catch on and catch up, so KCET dropped a shoulder, jinked right and sprinted off down the wing with full-on, well, evolution in mind. A revamped engine, better animation, better graphics, more player likenesses, a full editor, club teams, visual touches like different coloured boots and the captain's armband showing up. It truly felt like a step up for a series many of us had already come to appreciate as the best soccer ball title out there. And there was one thing introduced here in 1999 that would change everything forever. Master League. A mode in which you took a team of average schmucks, nobodies, and through sheer force of will turned them into one of the toughest bunches of bastards this side of a convention of Stuart Pearce clones, scrapping their way to victory in a manner that would make Speedball 2's Brutal Deluxe weep softly. At least if you played Master League like I did. Others simply got involved with things like signing players and getting rid of the bad players. Cowards. Regardless of whether you played it the right way or the wrong way, Master League was an absolute revelation. It married the wonder of playing a truly special football game with the sheer depth of satisfaction that could only come from something like Championship Manager back in the late 90s. The pick-up-and-play nature was complemented perfectly by the slower-paced, more strategic approach to building a team and fighting your way from mediocrity to champions of all the foots and balls. It took something that was a game made for a few matches with mates, well, a few dozen in my youth, they were well-spent weekends. It took it from something shorter term and made it into something you played for hours and hours and hours. And hours. By ISS Pro Evolution 2, we'd grown a bit tired of the ridiculous naming conventions, especially in Japan where it was known as World Soccer Jiku Winning 11 2000 U23 Medal E no Chosen. And even though the States didn't get this particular game, it did get its own enhanced update of the previous game, going by the name of ESPN MLS Game Night, so Christ, even now I still get embarrassed by these names and it's been 20 odd years. Away from the names, the series continued to improve at a steady pace. The now all-important Master League saw an extra division and more teams introduced, making it even more engaging to play for extremely long stretches. It also saw the first appearance of legends like Iorga and Miranda, though the latter was originally called Miranda, and seeing this while recording for this video has cleared up a bit of a Mandela effect thing I had going on in my brain regarding that name. But I digress. The in-game bits were refined, and while 1-2 passes were still overpowered, it was magnificent. The best football game on the PS1 by a wide margin, and a fine way to say goodbye to the series on Sony's first console. Yes, it returned with the ISS game a couple of months after ISS Pro Evolution 2 released from a studio called Major A, but that was pap and so is not part of this story. And there was a certain follow-up I'm just getting to that had 2 entries ported to PS1 in 2002, but they're not relevant. What is relevant to the story is the step up to the PS2, the point where we finally, 7 years after the first ISS release, entered into the true next generation of soccer kicker foot games. Pro Evolution Soccer was its name. PES was what we called it. Some PES, some Pro Evo. Nobody called it PES, and even if they said they did, they're a liar of a similar magnitude to someone who claims they say SNES. PES arrived with the sort of hype and swagger you'd expect from the connoisseur's favourite. KCET Tokyo knew exactly what it was doing and had translated the existing framework wonderfully to the new console, as well as bringing in the new newness you'd, once again, expect. Oh, and this one was winning 11-5 in Japan for those keeping score. That first PES still wasn't the why when it comes to people still having such a strong attachment to the series. It was good and a step up, but that true specialness was still developing. The series continued to evolve and get better, tweaking things, getting the odd new license, perfecting the feel of a football game that demanded the player actually play football. Football where you were capable of failing, where you had to be paying attention to play well, and end-to-end high-scoring games weren't the default. Just like real Evolution, Pro Evolution Soccer didn't exist and was a lie made up by Marxists on Twitter. No, not that one. Just like Evolution, it was a slow, imperfect process. That's what I was going for. Regardless, it continued and eventually it reached the absolute peak of the series on PS2. Delete as appropriate. By that, I mean whichever one of these I say here, there'll be plenty of you saying I'm wrong. I'm going with PES 5, but there may be just as many claiming PES 4 as the true great or PES 6 as the winner of all. Some might say PES 3 because it had a referee on the cover, which is like the next edition of Madden, putting an umpire on the front cover. Anyway, it's PES 5 for me, but even with the small differences between each version of the game, the whys and hows are the same across all three releases. And it's PES Magic. You'll know it if you know the series, maybe more if you knew the series in this period when it was inarguably the best out there. Perhaps it isn't as big a thing in recent years, but plenty know it. That feeling, that little twinkle in the game's eye, the knowing nod, the acknowledgement that it's given you a damn fine representation of the sexy game. It's PES magical. When you go on a marauding run from midfield and pick the opposition's defence apart with a pinpoint through ball, it's magical. Trying for over a decade to hit a Gasca Mendieta-style corner to volley from the edge of the area, even never actually managing to do it, that's magic, because I still try to do it. Beating a friend 5-4 with a last-minute overhead kick into the top corner, resulting in you leaving the PS2 switched on overnight with a note attached to the TV instructing your housemate to watch these highlights. That's PES magic, even if your housemate didn't see the note or watch the highlights. Thanks, Jack. PES Magic isn't an official thing, and you'll get a million different answers if you asked a million different people to define it. You'd also get sectioned for doing that, but that's by the by. But it all relates to the respect to football the PES series showed at this time. Yes, it was slower than the competition. It had more lulls. Not lulls. As I said before, high-scoring games were a rarity. But all of that was coupled with an engine that supported this style perfectly. You could play to an individual's strengths. A quicker player actually had an advantage over a slower one, but a defender with high tackling stats could genuinely hold their own against even the nippiest of blighters. It wasn't reliant on push push push, attack attack attack. It wasn't operating like a secret basketball game as FIFA seemed to back then, with players taking it on turns to go on the attack, score, then head back the other way and score. Fun could be found in good defending, a strong block or a last-ditch clearance. Fun could be found in the middle of the park with careful passing play. Frankly, I'm not sure which was the better feeling, scoring a goal from a lob-through ball or the fact that a lob-through ball came off to begin with. PES Magic found the joy in playing football. It made sure you worked for those highs and made it so even today that distinct period of PES games, 4, 5 and 6, is still capable of making you pump your fist with such force you rupture a tendon after scoring a well-worked, hard-fought goal. That feeling is a strong one, and it came at the right time for many of us. Before games were commonly online, we had to play PES against each other face-to-face, in the most part. None of the games were fully licensed, so we created our own realities, or downloaded option files to fill in the gaps. Master League carried on being the master of leagues. Magic, magic, magic. Everywhere, magic. Plus, when confronted by the Dutch Football Association banning video games from featuring its real-life players or digital recreations with sound-alike names, instead of removing the Netherlands altogether like in FIFA, PES went with the greatest, stupidest, greatest decision in all of gaming ever. Every single player was named Orange with a different number at the end. That's just performance art. It fell apart, naturally. Things stayed largely static on the PS2, with the new versions of the game holding on to that PS2 engine and not tweaking things gigantically until the series final and the PS2's very last game released in 2013. But the move to the PS3 generation from PES 2008, the renamed PES 7, was a gigantic misstep that the entire series took a long time to recover from. At the same time, FIFA had stepped up and started making actual decent representations of the sport around FIFA 08, with its developers later going on record to say they were deliberately aping the best of PES to put in their own game. So there was a legitimate alternative for the PES faithful who'd been let down by Konami pulling what would come to be known as a Konami on the new-gen consoles. Sure, the series pulled up from its nosedive eventually, but by that point it had lost all of its momentum. Recent entries have been good. I've enjoyed the last few years' worth of PESs. They've still got that twinkle even if it has dimmed a fair old bit. PES Magic has made the odd appearance too, it's fair to say, but it's not been the same for a long time. I asked at the start, why are they still doing this? Why are modders and tinkerers still taking the PS2 versions of PES and updating them with modern teams, kits, and other bits and pieces? Well, the answer is here in this video that you've just watched. It's because, at one point in time, in one generation of this great series, it was perfect. No, not objectively perfect, but still perfect. The time, the place, the era, the game, perfect. We watched the series we loved so dearly crumble before us, ever hoping it would one day return to that greatness enjoyed now so long ago. But it never happened. And that's why a name change like this hurts so much, why it means so much to a certain section of the fandom. It's why you're hearing the cries of PES is dead when talking about a series that is ongoing and has merely seen a name change and moved to a service-based model rather than a buy and play one. Because we held out hope for so long. We flew the flag and tried to rally the ever-dwindling masses, but none of it mattered. eFootball is here, and to those of us still in the PES Magic circle, PES is dead. Thanks for watching, and as ever thanks to my patrons on Patreon for their support. First this lovely bunch on the $5 and above tier. And of course, special named thanks to my higher tier supporters. Lola Osman, Paintball Magazine PBM print will never die, Takara Hoshi. You can join in that wild Patreon experiment at the link below if you want, and if you don't, that's obviously fine. Anyway, I'm off to score some goals with Orange 012. Bye!